Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another story time this week. A really cool day is coming up on Monday. It is our winter solstice. Does anybody know what that means? Winter solstice is the shortest day that we have in the year. So the sun rises at the latest time and sets at the earliest time, giving us the shortest amount of sun on that day, at least in the northern hemisphere. So we're gonna, before we read our story, talk a little bit more about why our day length changes throughout the year and about the solstices and equinoxes that we have. So if those are words you don't know, tune into this. All right, so let's learn a little more about why we have varying day lengths throughout the year and a little bit about the seasons on our planet. So I have here my trusty globe, and you can see from bottom and the top, we call these the poles, the very top and bottom of the planet. They are not perfectly aligned up and down, but they're kind of at a tilt. So our Earth is actually tilted on its axis. It's not perfectly up and down. You can see our equator here, instead of running perfectly around side to side, it's also at a bit of a tilt, okay? And this is really important for our seasons. And let's check out why. Okay, so imagine this is our sun. Our sun is the star at the center of our solar system. It gives off lots of light and heat to the rest of the planets. We have 8 planets, like the Earth here, that circle around the sun, which again is the center of our solar system. Earth is the 3rd planet from the sun, and it takes 1 year for the Earth to make a full circle around the sun. Okay? It only takes Earth one day to spin all the way on its axis. Okay, so every day the Earth does a complete spin around. So it spins each day. There's 365 of these spins, right? As the Earth moves all the way around the sun. All right, now let's look at where we are in our travel around the sun. So with winter solstice coming up, we are entering, like we said, our shortest day of the year. So if we look at the top of our globe up here, the very tippy top, right up here, the North Pole, even when our Earth is spinning throughout the day, that North Pole is not getting any sunlight. So they're going to have weeks of darkness up here without seeing the sun for weeks. Can you imagine? Just total darkness for weeks upon weeks. Let's find us on the globe. Right here is Minnesota and Wisconsin. So you can see that we're in the sunlight. We do still get sun, but as we travel, right, we get into darkness pretty quick. You can't see my side of the globe. So our days are really short. Down here in the southern hemisphere, they have much longer days. More sunlight is hitting the southern hemisphere right now because of the way the Earth is tilted. Okay. At the South Pole, they will have weeks upon weeks of sunlight. So we call that the midnight sun because the sun is up all day long in the South Pole right now. Okay. As our Earth travels, so this over here would be our spring equinox. Because the Earth is still tilted, it's always still tilted, but because of the placement it is in its journey around the sun, the pole isn't necessarily pointed away from the sun like it is over here. It's kind of on the same plane, right? So if it was pointed away, I would be facing this way, but it is not. Okay, so both poles are equally close to the sun. If I move over to here, what would be the northern hemisphere's summer, right? Now both poles are not equally close to the sun. The North Pole is pointed at the sun, and the South Pole down here is pointed away. And you can see our South Pole is in darkness. So in June, up here, when we're having our summer solstice, the longest day of the year, down here, the South Pole is in complete darkness, having their longest night of the year. Okay, as we move over here, we would be in, this would be the fall equinox. And just like our spring equinox over here, neither pole is closer to the sun. They're kind of parallel to the sun, if you will. And on our equinoxes, we have about equal day length and night length. So each of those things is about 12 hours long in our day. Okay, so I'm gonna go back over here. We are in our winter solstice, or coming up to our winter solstice, the longest night we're gonna have. And as we move towards our spring equinox, our days are gonna start getting a little bit longer every day. Now that we know about the shortest day of the year, the winter solstice, if it's the shortest day, it must also be the what? The longest night. So we are going to read a story called The Longest Night, and it was written by Marion Dane Bauer and illustrated by Ted Lewin. Okay. Love the illustrations of this book. The Longest Night. The snow lies deep. The night is long and long. The stars are ice. The moon is frost. And all the world is still. So we're out in the woods somewhere. It's dark, winter. Who's this? Bears sleep, as do the velvet mice. A moon shadow lies by every tree, thin as a hungry wolf. Sha, whines the wind, the bitter wind. Cold and dark now rule. Cold and dark now rule. So some of our animals are sleeping through winter. Gone, caws the crow, the night dark crow. So long the sun's been gone. I saw it sink, I saw it sneak, I saw it creep behind a cloud and go to sleep. But I'm the one. I know how to bring back the sun. I'll fly with my strong wings to reach the clouds. I'll poke with my sharp beak and wake the sun. Not you, sighs the wind, not you. Doesn't sound like Crow can bring back the sun. Gone, cries the moose, the mighty moose. I know the sun is gone. I saw it slip, I saw it slide, I saw it plunge from the bowl of the sky and disappear behind a hill. Do you think Moose will be the one to bring the sun back? But I'm the one. I know how to bring back the sun. I have legs long enough to reach that hill, to climb that hill. I have antlers strong enough to scoop up the sun and bring it home. Not you, sighs the wind. Not you. Ooh, who is this? Gone, barks the fox, the clever fox. The sun is too long gone. Someone must search, someone must seek, someone must find the hole the sun crawled into. So Fox thinks the sun went into a hole. I'm the one. I know how to bring back the sun. I have a nose keen enough to sniff out the sun's hiding place. Paws quick enough to dig it up. Teeth sharp enough to grab the sun and toss it back into the sky. Not you, sighs the wind, not you. Shush, shush. So there's Fox looking for the sun. He's not going to bring it back either, so who is? The night is long and long, says Chickadee. The sun is gone and gone. If not Crow or Moose or Fox, then who? Who can bring back the sun? You, says the wind, only you. How can Chickadee bring back the sun? Moose was going to be strong enough to go get it. Crow was going to peck at it with its sharp beak. Fox was going to sniff it out and dig it up and toss it back with his teeth. How's Chickadee going to do it? Me? Cries the Chickadee. Her? Cried Crow and Moose and Fox. Shashoo, answers the wind. Chickadee hears, only you. The little bird knows she can't fly all the way to the sun. Her beak isn't strong enough to poke it awake. She can't climb or scoop. She can't sniff or dig or toss the sun into the sky. So she does instead what chickadees do best. She sings a song. Dee dee dee, she sings. And dee and dee and dee, she sings. And dee again. What kind of noise is that? Cries Crow. Just a dee and dee and dee. The sun won't listen to such nonsense, bellows Moose. What can it possibly mean? Barks Fox. Just dee, says the Chickadee, only that. Dee, dee, dee. Shashee, says the wind. A star melts away, then another. The frosty moon pauses, snagged in the branches of a tree. The world holds its breath, waiting. Dee, 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 says the Chickadee, and again, dee and dee. Slowly, slowly, the sun opens his eyes. He stretches, he tilts his head, listening. Who sings in the cold and the dark? He asks. Who indeed? Whispers the wind. Shashee, shash. Dee, 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 says the Chickadee, and the sun smiles. Fingers of light peel back the blanket of darkness. Fingers of light grasp the edge of the world, and slowly, slowly, the sun lifts himself into the sky. Thank you, sun, sings the Chickadee. Thank you, sun, echoes the world. And with the song of one small bird and the sun's answering smile, the journey towards spring begins. So that was our story, The Longest Night. Here in Minnesota and Wisconsin, our shortest day is just under 9 hours of sunlight. So that means our longest night is a little more than 15 hours of darkness. We are not super high up towards the poles like we saw before when we were talking about the solstices. So parts of Canada and Alaska and even further up in that northern circle, so northern parts of Europe to Russia, all of those places that are further north than we are have even longer longest night. So if you lived in the very tippy top of Alaska, the sun would set at towards the end of November, and it wouldn't rise again until about mid-January. So you have your longest night is over a month long. So it can be a really long time. I like to think of this book taking place in an area where that longest night lasts for weeks instead of just a few hours like we have here. And I bet by then the animals would really want to get the sun back, right? If they hadn't seen it in weeks and weeks and weeks. Do you think that Chickadee's call really brings the sun back? So we talked about how it's kind of the rotation of the earth that causes the difference in our seasons and our length of day and whether or not we can see the sun. But we often hear the chickadees in about January and February start changing their call. So normally we might hear a chickadee go chickadee dee 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 dee, and that's the call we typically hear throughout the summer too. And into the fall. And then in the late winter, early spring, we start hearing them make a Phoebe, Phoebe call. That's often thought of as something that brings spring or means spring is coming really soon when the chickadees change their call. So I'm not sure that this is what this book is about, but I like to think that's what it's about. So that was our story for this week. Thank you for listening to
to our story, I'm going to put some resources down below for activities that you might want to do on the shortest day of the year. There are probably going to be some night activities in there, or other activities that you might want to try doing in the dark in wintertime. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks for another story time.